Hello friends, and welcome back to another episode of Kirby Russia. Today's topic is a little vague and a little bit more for my regular viewers. It's about one thing that could happen after the war is over. Previously I made a video about the topic from the standpoint of that a lot of Russian soldiers are actually saving up quite a bit of money if they're not blowing it from their bonuses. Definitely enough to put money down on a house, and also they're being sort of re-Christianized. As while the soldiers are living at the front, they're having a lot of opportunities to live an Orthodox lifestyle and get reacquainted with their religion. Of course, for the Muslim soldiers, it would give them more time to be reintroduced to their own religion after all those many decades of communism, so on and so forth. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about a certain different group of people, not Russia's forces, but let's just say the financiers of their enemy at present. Because I was thinking about what would happen, the war ends, right? And it looks as though, unless something radical happens, Russia is going to win the war, and it ends. But it's probably not going to end there, because as it seems like you can hear from many experts who are way more astute and well-dressed than I am, that it looks like sort of the West, its 500 years of total domination is over, and the West is a sinking ship. But the thing is, well, what happens when that ship sinks? Aren't there going to be certain ramifications? Now, when we're talking about, the elite in a country, we're not going to talk about the average masses of the West. The average person in the West, as the West continues to decline, things for them are probably just going to get worse and worse. I kind of fear that there may become, let's just put it, a very radical reaction to some of the policies, especially about immigration and cultural masochism that have been over the last 30 years. And let me just put it this way. The indigenous populations of the West, if given the freedom to do so, might react very, very violently against those policies, let's just call them, or vice versa. If the Western indigenous populations eventually become the complete minority, they might be on the chopping block. So unfortunately for the West, personally, both of those outcomes seem rather repulsive. Just to tell you, there are certain people who they predict for the future what they want to happen. I am not one of those people. I predict about the future what I think is going to happen. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot of blood in Europe, one way or the other. There's not much you can do about it. Hopefully, I'm wrong, and everything will be sunshine and rainbows, and Europe will restore itself without a single loss of life. That'd be awesome, but I don't know. Now, when we're talking about the elite, you have to understand things, is when we listen to a lot of people, especially in the sort of conspiracy theory circles, they talk about all the different groups, be they the elite of the remaining monarchy of Europe, usually the British royal family, the sort of Skull and Bones, Masonic Temple, the Vatican, all these different groups that sort of behave like vampires on a hill, right? And how, in a lot of ways, they're a bit amorphous. It's we've all heard the story about how, the wealth of Europe, they went to England to found the City of London, and then from the City of London, when things there weren't as sweet, they went to America, and then they financially took over America with the whole Federal Reserve System, and that's where they are now, and blah, blah, blah. And I've heard that story from many different people about this sort of mobility of the elite and how they don't have any national alliances, so on and so forth. But when when the West falls and there's kind of nowhere to go, do you really think that amorphous elite is actually going to be able to go to the global South and just integrate into it? See, I don't. I think one of the reasons why the actual war in Ukraine is being fought to the bitter end from the standpoint of the West, and why we actually are constantly being shoved towards the threshold of nuclear Armageddon, which again is something that is not good. Like I told you just a few minutes ago, I do not like a lot of the predictions I make, and being pushed towards the nuclear threshold is also a very bad thing. But why is it happening? Some people say it has to do with the election. And this is a bit of Biden's ego, and the Democrats really want to hold the election. But when you really think about it, true, the liberals in Washington are certainly not very good at organizing a proxy war against Russia. But one thing they are good, at least in the past, they used to be very good about understanding poll results and electoral politics and how to, let's just say, run certain policies that are very anti-American while during election time making sure that people turn out to vote, including dead people, so on and so forth. And one thing I can tell you is if you really look at polling results of the American masses, no one cares about foreign wars. Even if that foreign war is going to kill their kid who's in the military, don't care. It is not a priority. No one is interested in it. And so I could even say that after the humiliation of what happened in Afghanistan, the United States could completely bail on Ukraine in the most humiliating fashion possible, and I don't think it would have any effect on Biden's popularity or how many people would turn out to vote. I think it would have virtually, let's just say it, a nominal effect. I'm sure there's one guy out there somewhere who's in Chicago who's like, I put my heart and soul into the war. How dare you, Biden? But besides that one weird guy in Chicago, no one really cares. So this whole narrative that I keep hearing about the logic of why we're thrust towards the threshold of nuclear Armageddon is because Biden and the Democrats have to stay in power. They can't allow Trump to come into power. That has no connection to the war, or a very nominal little connection to the war. It really doesn't matter. So I think it could be something else. I think the real connection could be that perhaps some of the elites who are a bit more astute than their clowns, let's just say in various congresses, parliaments, Bundestags, and various other random big rooms where people do voting, those real elites, they might be sort of smelling feeling where the wind is blowing. And if this war goes really, let's just say, badly, and there is a sort of breakup or collapse of the West, they're in deep doo-doo. May I remind you, friends, not only on this channel was probably the first place, well, the previous channel that got stolen from me, this was probably the first place you ever heard about the whole biolab thing. And whether you believe that to be a real thing or not, I can tell you that the powers that be in Russia and China believe that the West, especially the United States, organized their genocide through bioengineering, or at least was trying to. Okay? So, guys, if you look at things through mafia rules, if one crime family plans and seriously puts into motion, let's just say, moves to destroy some of the other crime families, there's going to be a mob war. And there could be what I think is really what's scary for some of these elites in the West, is that if there is some sort of mob war between the elites, the Russian ones, the Chinese ones, the Western ones, perhaps others as well, who knows, that they're not going to win that, especially if the Western economies collapse. Perhaps they are still, to the degree, so arrogant and so complacent in their 500 years of total dominance. They're riding the end of a long wave of historical inertia. They don't believe that. Maybe that's the case, and maybe I'm totally wrong. But I think my theory at least explains a lot about why they have to keep this war in Ukraine going. Of course, there's a simpler theory that this is all the gravy train. That this is the war we're doing now. While we can, let's milk this thing as much as possible. Because various different people who, again, are much better at, let's just say, their knowledge of just how exactly budgeted money is spent is higher than my own. And when you listen to those kind of people talk about the next $60 billion, this eternally hanging carrot in front of Kiev's mouth of another $60 billion in aid, well, it seems like a very small portion of it is actually going to go to them. So this could also be that the war has to keep going forward and forward and forward, because it is such a lovely corruption pit. It is a money-making extravaganza for corrupt politicians. So that's the simplest explanation as to why this keeps happening, that we're risking the destruction of the human species because certain people see this as their maybe their last potential opportunity to make a ton of money off of the dead bodies of a lot of conscripts. So that's a more simple explanation, but I wanted to throw out there this explanation of potentially that the elites are scared for their own hides because they have, hey, if you, like I said, I made the mafia analysis, but long story short, there's one thing when you maybe fight a proxy war or you make some sort of economic maneuvers or even maybe enact potentially terrorism against the other side. But it's a whole different thing when you plan a genocide. And so, I don't know, guys. Think about it. The war goes bad. Europe is in the trash can. Their economies are wasted. What's going to be the future of the United States? We don't know. But, I don't know. I guess the European leaders might have to... Best case scenario is a lot of the European politicians that have destroyed Europe are going to learn are going to have to learn how to drive a pickup truck. Because they're going to have to go to North America. Because they're going to not be very safe within the territory of their own countries that they despise. That's for sure. If the United States, unfortunately, also turns into a very unstable location, then again, where do they go? You think those kind of people like this, like he's sort of the poster boy for all of this, but like a George Soros type of person that is despised by the entire global South, right? Including the big dogs, like Russia. You think if he is living in a collapsed West, that that type of person is just going to be able to walk around, go on their usual daily routine, have brunch, talk about the necessity to exterminate humanity down to X number of people and blah, 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 and something about environmentalism. That is not going to be the case. That is not going to be the case. So I just wanted to throw this out there that maybe the simplest thing is the war just keeps going because of corruption, not because of these elections. Again, this whole election theory doesn't seem to make sense. There's the get the corruption, get it while it's good, because if you're a corrupt politician, you got to get that money while it's hot, because you never know. If Trump comes in office, it could be 4 more years of no new wars, and that's bad for business. But this other sort of theory that maybe the Western elites are actually really terrified for their future for the first time in 500 years. Something to think about. Something to think about.